these pages, there's so much revelation. These are words to remind you of your purpose. There's power in life of the life of boys. 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 To share this wealth of information. In these pages, there's so much revelation. These are words to remind you of your purpose. There's power in life of boys. The 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 life of boys.
welcome to February's edition of the Life of Books. Yes, mic check, 1 2 1 2. Yes. Happy Saturday. We thank you for joining us. We are excited to be here. We're just a few minutes late. Thank you for your patience. This is what live is about. We are grateful to have you join us. January was such a monumental moment for us. Thank you for all of our WLVS listeners. You are right, Hadassah. It was almost a tragedy behind the scenes. Yes. Yes. Welcome. January was such a monumental moment, and we will say this going forward. We're looking forward to February. It's just a bunch of hearts sitting around the table in front of our fireplace, sharing a moment and letting you listen. We thank you, all of those joining us on WLVS Online, and all of those joining on the social media world. Please invite your listeners, your audience, your social media audience to join us. Today is going to be a great day. We are really looking forward to the next 2 hours. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us. We're going to do some things a little different today. We are going to talk about the book, The Quandary, written by Sarita Lynn, and it was forwarded by Pastor Antonio Matthews. And he is actually the reason why we chose this book. He is very near and dear to our hearts, and we wanted to, in any way we can, honor and appreciate the ones that's closest to us. And we thought that sharing something that he thought so much of to write a foreword to, we thought that it would do his heart some good if we shared in her excitement of her very first write. So that is going to take place at the 9 o'clock hour. Right now, we're going to talk about something that we all are truly excited about, and that is an event that's coming up on April the 14th. It's a Woman's Voice Family Conference. But before I dive in, yes! Woo, 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 woo. Come on now. Yes. Before I dive in, I want the ladies to just introduce themselves around the table. Myself, I am Dr. Nakia Wright. I am married to one of the greatest men that ever walked this earth, Bishop Donald Anthony Wright. That's my boo. That's my honey. I am honored to be his wife, and it gives me great joy to say I am Mrs. Wright. So, babe, if you're listening, it might be a little early. I kept you up all night. I'm sorry. But I still give him all honor that's due to him whenever I'm in front of an audience. Starting with you, Charm.
Well, I am Charm, a.k.a. Charmy, Charmonique.
Marcy Diane.
Good morning, Diane.
Good morning. Wait a minute. Jay, it's on? I couldn't hear myself. I'm sorry.
Tashia like to be loud, Jay. Make her mic loud, Jay.
Jay, turn my mic up. Jay, turn my mic up. Hi, I'm Tashia.
Good morning, I'm Shalonda.
Hi, I'm Tamika.
Yes, and for those that are listening, let us know if Shalonda and Tashia's mic is loud enough for you to hear. Again, thank you for joining us. We are so excited to be here. Yes! I want to start the morning off talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and it is the Women's Voice Conference. It is taking place on Saturday, April the 14th, and our focus this year is on families. And I am truly, truly, truly grateful that the Dream Team is joining me on this journey. We are after what's after us. The most thing that is nearest and dearest to us is our family. And it oftentimes seems like our family is our greatest joy and then our greatest struggle. So none of us have all of the answers, but I thought if collectively, if we got the husbands and the wives and the kids and the aunts and the uncles and the grandparents in the same room, we can start a dialogue. Yeah. And not only start a dialogue, we can share our own life experiences in hopes that it would be an answer for you. It is an entire day of impact. We start off with a pre-conference kickoff at 10 o'clock in the morning. I am committed to the county in which I live and work in, which is Prince George's County, and I admire and I take a huge part in those that lead our county. So it gives me great honor to sit at the table with them to share a meal to start the day off. We're going to begin at 10 o'clock. We've invited our elected officials and their families to join us to break bread. And at that time, we're just going to share. They're going to hear our hearts. We're going to hear theirs. And it's a very monumental moment that I believe will have great impact. And I've never seen it before. So I'm really excited about it, and so are they. The cost for the breakfast only is $10. I promise you, it is going to be one of those moments that we will do every year, because that's how impactful it's going to be. So make sure that you come. Have your Starbucks in the morning, have your energy drinks. We'll have some on site for you as well. Start the day off with our breakfast. It's going to be phenomenal. Yes. Woo-hoo! I'm excited. So after the breakfast, we're going to start our conference. The conference time is from noon to 6 o'clock p.m. And let me tell you something. You get an entire day. The early bird registration is just $35. For $35, you get the cute little swag bag, handy dandy thing. I don't know what we're going to call it yet, but you're going to get something monumental when you check in. That's going to be worth keeping, every bit of whatever you get. Yes. You're going to have a meal, that's a lunch that is going to be prepared just for you. And you have access to so much experience and wisdom throughout the day. Absolutely. It costs people something to be able to share with you. Mm-hmm. Those that are going to stand before you that day, $35 will not pay for the wisdom that they possess. So let me tell you, get your tickets. It's going to be absolutely life-changing. In years past, this will be our third conference, and we've ministered to the heart of women. But we said we do so much to build up women, which is necessary and is needed. But there's not enough being done for men, millennials, and we wanted to bring everyone in the room together so that not one person comes home empowered and changed. It is our goal to impact the entire family.
So good. Yes.
So let me tell you something. If you have problem with daycare, we've worked it out for you. We have daycare on site. So bring your kids, bring your babies, bring your husbands, your boos, and your wannabe boos. Bring your sons, bring your brothers, bring your sisters.
Get you married on
Let me tell you something.
All the clergy in the room.
If you got a marriage license, we might hook you up a little bit. I gotta work on that. Just know if we have Tashia performing the ceremony, you're gonna need to go get another one after that. I've talked enough. Let someone else from the Dream Team share their day. Dee, let's hear your heart about the conference that's coming up on April the 14th. She's one of our speakers. She'll be one of the hearts sharing with the women on that day.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, wait, Jay. My name is Dr. Wright, and I don't sound like that. Jay, what's going on? I don't sound like this.
He fixing it now.
Yeah, hook me up, Jay. Hook me up.
Look at this one.
You go ahead. Your mic is
Okay. I'm just like, all right. I was waiting on him, but I am filled with great enthusiasm, and I am full, looking with expectation to our conference. Family is the first contact, the foundation of how we relate, of how we see the world. That's our first nucleus experience that we have in how we engage with one another. And if you look at just the pulse of where we are living in a day where we have access to so much information. The former generations could say they couldn't afford to buy a book or they didn't have a library card. And we have so much information, but yet we are so disconnected. And so I welcome a platform, an opportunity just to share my microcosm of an experience that I believe will be beneficial. My segment is I've lived, I've learned, I've winned, I've lost, now what? And balance is so necessary for after every loss and win. And for me, I believe perspective is everything. How you see a thing matters. And so often when we come off a victory, we can come off a victory and be immediately distracted. Yeah. And also when it comes to a loss, we're so caught up in why the loss that we don't recognize a loss is a win if it's positioning you in purpose. Yeah. So I just welcome an opportunity to gather every aspect of the family. I represent one who is a child of recovery. I come from a blended family, and thank goodness I came from parents who understood the power of brokenness and saw the beauty in getting a second chance. So I like to deem myself as one who has benefited from someone who has recovered from brokenness. And so I look forward to just having a moment with all of you. Hopefully you'll bring your mom, your dad, your uncle, your aunts. Bring everybody, because there is something in the room for everybody. I don't believe that God would tailor make such a moment where you have so many aspects of the community, so many bodies coming together and nothing happen. If you know anything about God, you know that nothing just happens, but it takes by faith and a people who believe that my life is worth something to show up and watch what happens in the room. So I'm looking forward to a great moment with you.
Yes. Her session addressing women is going to be so impactful. I don't know if it doesn't matter if you're 18 or 65. Words of wisdom is words of wisdom. And I love to hear from sincere, authentic hearts who've been through something to share their experiences. Because as she said, oftentimes we celebrate victories, but there is a recovery after the victory. We celebrate some victories a lot longer than what we should, and we don't look forward to the next one. And I appreciate the platform that we are providing, because it gives you a roadmap of what life should look like, supposed to look like. And everyone's perspective is not the same, but the Bible is our blueprint, and that's exactly what our foundation is on that day. We'll be following the blueprint of our lives, and I'm excited. I'm grateful, and I'm embracing the moment. If you have not yet registered, make sure that you register today. Again, this is the women's session. Sharmi, give us a little highlight of the men's session with Pastor Sturdivant.
So Pastor Sturdivant from Faith United Ministries, which is actually where the conference will be held, he is a dynamic speaker, a man. He has so much wisdom in him. And so this session will be geared towards all men. I was on Instagram the other day, and this an Instagram follower of mine, he posted something, and it was him sitting in a chair. He was reading a book, and his son had climbed up on his shoulders, and his son was reading the book on his shoulders. And he says, "This seems to be all of my children's favorite place up on my shoulders where they can see further than me." And so Pastor Sturdivant is a father and a general in the earth. And what he's going to do is he's going to make it so you can stand on his shoulders and see further. So that way, when you're leading and when you're leading your family, whether you're leading your community, whether you're leading your sons, your daughters, you have more perspective on what it is that you're supposed to be doing. You're not just wandering and walking aimlessly as if you have no calling, no purpose. He will teach you how to get through your mistakes. Oftentimes, and we put this post up weeks ago, oftentimes men, they're almost looked at as if they ought to be one thing. They ought to do one thing, as if recovery is not possible for men in the time that it takes them to heal. And so this session will teach you how to recover well, how to recover in your own time, how to trust God fully with the call on your life. So I'm really looking forward to just witnessing all the men and the boys, the sons, the nephews in the room that will gain strength, and they will find what it is that God has called them to.
That's good. That's excellent, Sharm. I heard something at a conference I went to last week, and they said, we love our sons and we raise our daughters. And oftentimes, men want to be men, but they have not seen what it is that they're supposed to be. And I appreciate Pastor Sturdivant because, as Sharmy said, he's a general in the kingdom, and he can put perspective to questions. He can give insight to what I long for, but I've never seen. So I'm really looking forward to the men. Come out, men. A lot of times women will come to a conference because we're a little bit freer, but men are a little bit more reserved. I'm challenging the heart of every man to come and be in the building. Men are made to conquer, and oftentimes life will place us in a posture of bondage, and we forget that we are that they're conquerors, and we're waking up the conqueror in you on April the 14th. Be in the building. I'm excited about it. Tashia, talk to us about. Let's talk about, Jay, can we roll some of the flyers? The men's, can we just do show the men's conference flyer up? Tashia, let's talk about the voices of the family. That's a segment that Tamika's fiance is going to be on.
Yes.
No mic needed. No mic needed. I'll talk about the first half, and then Tashia, I'll pass the baton to you. The voices of the family, I have a new addition to that. The first one I want to address is Tion Penn. He is the son of Pamela Brooks. She lost her son about 2 years ago, and he's coming to talk with us about the new normal after you lose a sibling. And we've often heard from the hearts of the mother, but very seldom do you hear from the heart of a child, one of the children who was going through. And because we are in a time where, unfortunately, the life of our African American males is like an epidemic of death and murder. And I want every young child from every neighborhood to be in the building to hear the heart of Tion Penn. I feel like he is going to come. He's going to transform. He's going to offer words of healing. And he's going to offer something that they've never heard before. How do you recover in your new norm? Mm-hmm. Most of the times, I've seen the siblings go down a road of depression, and they don't recover from the day that they lost. And I've seen this young man, through his pain, through his tragedy, excel. And no, this was not easy, but I have to live. If my only motivation right now is to live because this is what he would have wanted me to do, it's a motivation enough for him to stand on the platform and share his story. So I am excited about that. And I added a young lady on last evening. I received confirmation, Letitia Thornton. Everyone knows her as a celebrity makeup artist that works with Jackie Hill. She is a single mom, and she's coming to the platform to discuss her life, how to be a single mom, how it meant putting everything that she dreamed and hoped for on hold in order for her son not to be a statistic. Yeah. And now that he's old enough to begin his own journey, now she's beginning hers. And I want her to come to the table. She's coming to talk about the road to being a single mom, what she didn't give up anything. She gained everything in the process. And that now that he's old enough to begin his own journey, time and destiny has met for her own life. And the things that God is beginning to do for her, it was worth the wait. So, Tasha, come on, let's talk about second chances with Churchill.
All right. I'm excited. What can I say? Oftentimes, we who know Churchill, we kind of box him into being the best drummer at Jabak, but I promise you this guy has a story to tell, and you will want to hear his voice. So I'm excited that when you get the men to talking, everybody listens. Yes. You'll get the attention of everyone when you get the guys to talk. So I'm excited that Churchill will come and share a moment of his life and his story. His redemptive story was going to save on Saturday, April the 14th. Yes. So we are are excited. Get your tickets, register today. I just admonish you to just be a part of this wonderful movement. It's going to be so timely, something that's so needed at the time that we in, at the season that we're in the earth now, in this hour. So come and hear all of the great lineups that we have from these wonderful people.
Yes, the segment is entitled Voices of the Family. Everybody's family sounds differently. So we pulled segments from what we thought were the most prevalent in this time, because when we started A Woman's Voice, we vowed to be an answer in the earth. So our lineup is based off of questions, and these are what we believe to be relevant answers. I am excited. Churchill's session is called Second Chances. As Dee stated before, and I'll reiterate, I am a product of a second chance. As many as you know, I just got married. I'm celebrating my 5-year wedding anniversary in September. Boo, 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 boo. Yes. My husband and I are one of the speakers for the Marriage Matters Ministry. And I get excited because whenever my husband speaks, because he's a reminder that he got up enough courage to believe in life one more time, and I'm a product of that belief, and I don't take it lightly. And so I'm grateful to be able to talk about that. And Bree Lynn and Tim Bowman will be there to join us on the panel. And there's nothing like young love, young love, young love. Marriages are so vital. They're not easy, but they're worth it. And in this day and time, I want to talk about the things that plague marriages that end in a premature, what I call a premature end, because one of the biggest things that marriages lack is communication. How do you effectively communicate? And how do you come and be a whole part to your marriage? And that's a few of the things that we're going to discuss. Marriages are necessary. Marriages are needed. Covenant is the most beautiful thing that you could ever experience. But if you don't have the tools to make it work, you're going in blind, and you never get the full benefit out of what it was meant to be. So the Marriage Matters on April the 14th, I think, is going to save many marriages. And I said this on social media. If you're happily married, if you're unhappily married, if you just choose to give it one more try, I promise you there'll be some nuggets that you'll walk away with, that you will find motivation to love again, motivation to start all over again. You can never have too many first start all overs. Start all over again for the 1,000th time. Go back to the reason why you fell in love with that person, and don't hold them to it. But sometimes you need a reminder, because the person you married and the person that you're looking at now might not be the same person. Did you grow in love with the person as life happened? And we're going to talk about all of that on April the 14th. I promise you. I am so excited. I'm coming with my bells on, whistles on. I'm going to be a cheerleader for every component of the conference. I've not seen a family conference of this nature anywhere. And when I tell you it's going to be off the chain, Marcy, let's talk about the dynamics of the family. That's going to be a panel with my Deb, Bishop Wright, Pastor James Sturdivant. Let's talk about that portion of the conference.
Wonderful. Well, all the sentiments that have been shared, the intent, we are fighting for families. And I think this panel with my Deborah, Pastor Sturdivant, you, Bishop, I think it's going to help us with our next. The thing about A Woman's Voice that I appreciate greatly is that Lady Wright said she hasn't seen this. First is a choice. And I am just so grateful that she said yes to this choice. And I appreciate that we are a determined answer in the earth. Yes. Like, as I've been thinking about the conference and all the different components, we are determined to fight for our families. We are determined to be an answer. And I think that will be further revealed through all of the dynamic speakers. And I'm just really excited. And if you join in our excitement, if you feel any part of our excitement, you can go to our website, www.awomansvoicematters.net. On the homepage, you can click there. You can see all of the speakers. You can purchase your tickets I am encouraging everyone, go out and get your tickets. Sometimes we wait to the last minute. Don't wait to the last minute. There's not anything better than what's coming on April 14th. So there's no reason for you to wait. Go out, get your tickets. I'm excited. Several of my family members are coming in from outside of the area. They've already gotten plane tickets and their tickets for the day. Join us. Don't miss this moment. All of the movements that are happening in the earth, and I'm excited about them. I'm encouraged by the young people. Sometimes we sit on the sideline and we push people. No, join the fight with us. Be there in the number. And if your family is perfect or you don't need every piece, take a part back so that you can teach someone else to fight for their family. Come and get built up and strengthened for your family. You need strength for the fight. And this is a day that will strengthen you. So we're excited. And again, get your tickets, $35. That's it.
I'm excited about it. Don't y'all feel the excitement in the room? Get your tickets. Get your tickets. It's going to be a great day. We can sit here all day and tell you the dynamics of the day, but you have to be there to experience it yourself. None of us is perfect. None of us have all of the answers. If you're looking to follow someone perfect, then don't follow us. But I've always said this for my own testament. I will always follow somebody flawed, because flawed mean that you've been through something and you know the way out. I don't want to be the blind leading the blind. Flawed has taught me how to work on my perfections. So come out and join a group of flawed individuals as we share our stories. I always say this: wisdom is better than experience. Come get the wisdom out of the hearts that will have said yes to this day. Marcy did something that's great. I'm going to send you to the website again, www.awomansvoicematters.net. Get your tickets. After March the 17th, the price goes up. As she said, I'll reiterate, don't wait for the last minute. Be a good investment in you. Get somebody else a ticket. Get somebody else a ticket that you know should be there. Grab your neighborhood, the boys in the neighborhood, and bring them. There's some group rates available. We have some sponsors that have purchased tickets and said if anybody need a ticket, I have one for them. So contact me on social media if you'd like to come but don't have the $35. Don't budget your $35 for something else and then come to me and say, I don't have the $35. Amen. Invest in yourself. I promise you, the rewards of investing to you, it far outweighs what I can do for you. So invest in yourself. Shalonda, when you think about the family dynamic in its totality, what comes to mind for you?
For me, I feel like as the family dynamic that we're talking about, I feel like right now is broken. And like you said, a lot of times we always minister to the woman of the family and we never get the totality of it. We sometimes leave out the fathers. We leave out sometimes the children. And I think that needs to be addressed in the earth. Even when you think about shelters, you know, a lot of times they'll take the mother and the kids, but they won't take the dad, you know. So it's a lot that we can learn from just coming together and including the men, because a lot of times, like someone said, the men don't always know what to become because they don't have that example set before them. I know for me, I grew up in a single parent home, and I feel like it's very, very much so important to instill in the fathers what they should be doing, what that role should be, because maybe they didn't have that father figure. You know what I mean? And for me, I live with the side effects of not having my dad around all the time. You know, my mom and my dad were together for a long time. And when I was 6, I remember like yesterday, I remember them, you know, breaking up. And I remember my father leaving the house. It's something that's like ingrained in me. I'll never forget that moment. I felt real broken as a child. Like, did I do something, or why are my parents not together? You know, you blame yourself, and it creates a cycle that if not checked, it becomes vicious, because I have looked for love in all the wrong places, trying to figure out what is it that I'm missing. Am I, you know, and I joke with you guys all the time and say, I don't want to get married, I don't want all of that. It's because
I'm missing something, and I think I figured it out not too long ago. I don't know what it's fully like to have the experience of being loved by a man that I should have gotten from my father from the very beginning. And I'm not saying my father's not a great man. Right now, me and my dad have a wonderful relationship. But those moments of growing up from 6 to whenever, teenage years, you need a voice. You need a hand guiding you to say, this is what it is to be loved. This is how a man should treat you. This is what you need in your life, and this is the example that you need to be drawn to, and not all the foolery that we can sometimes attract. And it's almost like if you have an example beforehand, it will prevent you from going through some of the things or the tragedies that I've experienced with this quote unquote love thing. If I would have had that invested in me, I would have known my worth from a very long time ago. You know what I mean? So I think that's very important.
That's excellent, Shalonda. That's very good. I want to piggyback on something she said. When she talked about the conferences for the not enough for the men and the children, I want to make sure that we highlight the millennials. We have sessions for the millennial males and the females. There was a tragedy that happened in our nation not too long ago in Florida last week, and all of those young kids lost their lives. But I've watching something so beautiful unfold as a result of that, and all the millennials coming through to the table to tell Congress we have to have some laws, legislation for gun rights done now, and the wisdom of the millennials is finally being heard, and people are breaking connections with the NRA. And I said, the millennials are some creative individuals. They can do what we only hope to do, and they do it with a boldness and magnitude that has never been seen before. And every millennial possesses that. But in our culture, we need to structure that so that we can see in our culture more. I was so proud of the millennials. They are loud, they are proud, they are determined, and they are focused. In Sea Pleasant, in Southeast, in Northwest, our millennials possess the exact same thing. And on April the 14th, we're going to push it out of them. I'm excited about it. Mika, you conclude this part of our segment. Again, welcome. We're welcoming our listeners from WLVS and our social media pages. After we conclude with Mika, we're going to take a very quick break, and we're going to come back with the author of The Quandary, which we're really, really grateful that she's here. Mika, talk to us. When you piggyback on what you heard at the table, and when you think about the magnitude of April the 14th, let's share with our listening audience what you believe the magnitude of the day will be.
Okay. As you all talk, I think that the power of our story, united collectively. You said something, Lady D. You said perspective is everything. Yes. And so my personal perspective changes over a lifetime. As a child, I may have been broken by my family dynamic. But as an adult, I can look back and extract the power out of that pain. And somebody else can benefit from the pain I endured. Absolutely. My life experiences. And so when I think about a panel, like a gathering of individuals that have a wealth of experience, that have taken the time to heal and process and now articulate their journey to others, to let somebody know that you're not alone. Absolutely. To let somebody know that you're not the only one fighting for your family. I think that you don't have a reference point for the power that's going to come out of the day, the places of heart that are going to be mended and healed for people. Our community, we are taught to keep family secrets. And those places have, depression is just buried emotion, right? It's just buried alive within you because you were taught that you couldn't talk about it. Yes. And the people that you're going to have speaking on this day, they are over the darkness of the secret that kept them bound. Churchill is a speaker, and I am a witness. I know I've watched him walk. I watch him live. There are great people, but then there are the shoulders that great people stand on. And he has found the ability to be a foundation to so many people, even in our church. He is a foundation that he never lived. So how have you become to everybody what you never had? Only God himself heals to the degree that you have that level of strength.
Yes.
And so I'm excited about the day. I'm excited about the day, and I'm excited about the stories that will be released off of the words of humankind. Yes. All of us together as human beings, growing, healing, and helping each other.
So good. That's so good. Yes, Mika. I'm going to just share just a tad bit about Churchill, who's one of our voices, voices of the family. Churchill has an awesome testimony. At a young age, his father was killed, and he had the opportunity to go to the prison and talk to the man that took his father's life. And he let him know that he forgave him for taking his dad. That's just a little bit of what you have to look forward to on April the 14th. I can't even imagine what that feels like and the impact it had on his life and the power that it took to make that come to pass. I mean, when I tell you April the 14th is going to be life-changing, it's going to be something that you've never experienced before. Get your tickets, www.awomensvoicematters.net. $35, a lifetime investment for just $35. You'll never see anything like this ever before, ever again. In Jesus' name, amen. I don't even know what we're going to do the following year. I have no idea. How can you top this level of greatness? I don't know. Thank you so much for joining in. We're going to take a brief break on WLVS, and we'll be back in just a few moments. And when we return, the author Sarita Lynn will be sitting at the table with us. Thank you.
To share this wealth of information. In these pages, there's so much revelation. These are words to remind you of your purpose. There's power in the life of books. The life of books.
Welcome to the Life of Books February edition. We are grateful to be here. Thank you for tuning in with us. We are again thanking our WLVS online listeners and our social media audience. Thank you for joining us this early in the morning. You are much appreciated. Yes. We have on this hour, we have the author of The Quandary, Sarita Lynn. Welcome to the table. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I said this when I opened up. Each year we pick our books, and we've had so many submissions. Thank you, everyone who submitted your book. But I have to tell you, your book was chosen because of the love that we have for your pastor, Pastor Antonio Matthews. Yes, and when we saw that his name was on this book, we was like, okay, she gonna get the. We do one local author, so she's gonna get the pick because we love Pastor Antonio so much. So we thank you. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. All right, the quandary: feeling responsible for what's not mine. Very briefly, our format, as you know, you viewed us before. We're just on the couch, sitting around the fireplace, just being ourselves and letting the world listen. It causes some vulnerability and some tender moments, but I'm grateful for the hearts that sit with me because they're willing to be vulnerable out in the open, and I'm excited about it. We're gonna just go around the room briefly and talk about the book, and then we're gonna ask you what prompted you. We know what prompted you to write it, but for those that have not yet read the book, we'll turn it over to you. So, Tamika, I'll start with you.
I have a deep admiration for anybody who's come to terms with their own story. And the thing that struck me about your book, and it's a privilege to sit here with you, the thing that struck me about your book was your authenticity, your transparency, your willingness to share. I gravitated towards it for that reason, because here's a person that, yes, their life in spoken words, but you've written it so that it can live forever. And so I enjoyed the story because I have enabled, right? I have taken on what's not mine in hopes of in wanting to see the best in people, right? And I've taken on their journey, and I played the role of Christ in their life. And so your story helped me to identify the areas where I went wrong, right? Just to release others to grow in their own process. So thank you for that.
For me, I feel like throughout the book, it was great. I appreciate your strength to share, because sometimes, life happens and we sometimes hide behind our stories. But when you actually speak it, it actually gives you relief. Release, it allows you to release the things that you've been holding. So I thank you for your courage to actually release. And I would like to think that it was an answer for you, in your journey to actually put those things in words. But one of the things that I liked about the book was the scriptures in the book, being a lover of the word of God. And I like how scripture is applied. So for me, I enjoyed to see how you connected it all back to the Bible. So that was good for me.
I just want to say thank you for giving us a glimpse of your journey. I, too, have had a baby brother that I felt like I was responsible for, so the book was very relatable for me. And for me, the book I viewed that you got healed from the book. I saw healing in the book, and that you just displayed that you were ready to break the cycle in your family of not being an enabler or codependency. So I got a lot from the book.
In our journey as women, oftentimes we baby the ones that we love. We overprotect, and oftentimes we want more for the people that we love than they want for themselves. And this book was just a reminder of just that. We want the best, and oftentimes, as Mika say, we play the little God in the lives of those that we love, and we don't fully allow God to heal, deliver, and set free, because we become their Christ. And we become their answer, we become their all. We protect, we hide, and we shelter. And I appreciate you being bold enough to share your story. And it was just a reminder that for those that I love the most, I have to make sure that I'm not in their way with their relationship with God, because God can't get to who I'm protecting. So it was really good for me.
Thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure when you get to engage with someone who mustered up the strength to be real. A lot of times we'll share the parts of our story that make us look triumphant, but we won't share the sides that really shaped who we really are. So I took a different perspective from the book as one who lost a brother tragically as well. it was challenging to open up the book and see the starting of you sharing the story of your brother. But one of the things that I had to do was shift my perspective and take it from, oftentimes we don't see behavior that we're exuding until we see it in someone else. So that's how I took the lens of the book and was able to get the meat out of it. But I truly applaud every aspect of your journey.
Everything that everyone has been saying, thank you for being here. One thing, so I have an affinity to support the work of anyone who is an overcomer. It's a reminder that I'm in great company. So thank you. The book, of course, I can see myself in different parts of the book, and it caused me to reflect, brought me to a place of great self-awareness, reminding me, you said something about moving, shaking, and then I added my story. Well, are you moving and shaking but making no forward progress in certain things? And then another question that I reflected on was, well, what role am I playing in someone's rise or fall? So it was just a great reminder, just keep checking yourself, keep a pulse on your activity, everything that they're saying. Don't be someone's God. Lead them to God. So thank you.
So like everyone else has already said, thank you again for coming. Thank you for the book. I took a different perspective on the book. So for me, I thought about, why do I enable? Like, it wasn't so much of just stop, but let me take a internal look and figure out, what do I think that I'm lacking, or what do I think that I'm gaining by trying to protect, or I believe they call it the superhero complex.
Yes.
Where you feel like you need to come in and save the day because it makes you look a certain kind of way, or it makes
Don't
you
stop saving the day in my life, though, Charmin. You are my superhero. Wait, let's just bring some balance to this table, though, Charmin.
Not like.
What does
that,
this mean?
What are you trying to say?
Not like that.
Take your cape off.
But what? But what?
Sarita, you breaking up lives around here, girl. You might have to leave.
Oh, this is a quandary for real. No, everybody need a shaman.
But no, it just made me take another look at why I do the things that I do, making sure that my motives are always pure, making sure that why I'm doing it is because it's a heart matter, not so much of, I'm just trying to save the day. So thank you for the book. It was great. Thank you.
Please. Yes.
So, first, let me say I'm so excited to be here. I am so excited. I had an option to call in, but I wanted to be at the table.
That's right.
I want to see the faces of the women who are taking the time to read my book and being able to express their opinions. So I appreciate that. Secondly, I want to give honor to Pastor Antonio Matthews, who wrote the foreword to my book. I'm very appreciative of him taking the time and the investment to see something in me and allow me to put his name on my book. And I knew, being a first-time author, I knew his name would help me. I knew he saw something in me, and he helped push me to go beyond my comfort zone, to be vulnerable. I was not that way. To be vulnerable and tell my story. I was one who wanted to have this facade that I had all together. When I walk out the door, you wouldn't think I had any challenges. But just being under his leadership, he taught me that my story is going to heal someone else, and that I had to allow myself to tap into that space to do that. And so that's how I got the courage to finally tell my complete story.
That's so good.
For those of you that are listening, again, I thank you. I cannot thank you enough. The book, The Quandary, she wrote the book and dedicated it to her brother. And the book is her life about how her brother was a drug addict, and how the things that she did that enabled him and possibly helped his habit, as opposed to help him be delivered from it. Did I say that correct? And it's for those people that have family members that are on drugs, I think that you can find a lot in her story because, as we've said, the truth of your life heals. And a lot of people think they overlove. They overcompensate in their love. And they try to protect the ones who have weaknesses. And rather than say no to you, you say yes and thinking that you're protecting them from something dangerous. And the quandary was really, the title is great. It's a great title for your book. And for those, I just believe for those people that have family members that have suffered with addictions, that you've provided a very plain, candid outline of what you had to go through during this process. Tamika, will you share with us one of the points in the book that you thought was really good? And Sarita, after she shares, you're welcome to just provide feedback.
Okay, so you kick off in your introduction. I'm on page 12 and 13. I couldn't wait. I'm so glad you called on me first. So I have always thought about wearing a mask like in a negative context, right? In terms of being fake or presenting the phony to others. But I'm gonna read what you said, and then I'll tell you what I thought. It says, at the bottom, it says, to look internally required me to dissect why I acted the way I did. And then, wait, let me open my book. And then come up with a strategy to make changes. I wasn't ready for true transparency. My disguises helped me to camouflage what I didn't want others to see in me. They helped me to hold on a little longer until I was strong enough to deal with my own truths. Then I went down to the last paragraph on page 13 says, Webster defines a face mask as a protective covering. Women should apply a facial mask monthly for an extended period to exfoliate dead skin particles. It is only after the mask is removed and the skin is exposed that you have a more vibrant look and feel about yourself. You begin to exude radiance. So if you've worn a mask at any point in your life, just know it served a purpose. And sometimes life just breaks you to the place where I can't deal right now. It's a protective mask. It's not a mask of inauthenticity, right? It's a mask that allows me to stand. And so I appreciated your positive take on the mask having a purpose, right? Until I'm ready, getting me to the place where I can identify what's causing the quandary within me. Like the mask is just while I'm dealing with myself. Is let me deal with myself until I identify the safe places, because authentic relationship takes time, right? And so the mask helps me, and I'm unmasking as I develop relationship with you and building trust with others who can help me with the quandary within. So I love that.
That was good. When I read that part, I said, I now look at a mask as self-preservation.
Yeah.
At the appropriate time, because you have to have balance, because sometimes masks can be a comfort zone and it could be detrimental to your growth, because masks provide comfort. But if you're in a self-preservation mode and your total intent is for growth, then it is, like you said, it's a healthy antidote to your moment. Yes, very temporary.
And many people don't have the answers for what you're going through. Mm-hmm. And so it's necessary, even just for them. Don't feel like you have to help me, right? I'm dealing with myself. So it doesn't mean that I'm not processing. It's just my body's most primal need is survival. Mm-hmm. And right now, I'm surviving my storm, right?
And it helps you deal with the season you're in. And so for me, growing up, as I mentioned, my brother had a drug addiction. I had the mask that I had it all together as we're calling the probation officers because he's locked up and we're going to the jails. You wouldn't see that. So I had to put on a mask until I was healing in the process. So God was helping me slowly but surely heal while the mask, exfoliates, it starts to dry. I think there's a whole process. So when the Holy Spirit gave me that analogy, I never thought of a mask in that way. And so the importance is really being able to just take every step you're going through. Many people don't see a way out of what they're dealing with, and they want to give up, and they want to commit suicide. But if they would just hold on one more day, although you might not think it's so authentic, if you just hold on one more day, at the end, there is light on the other side. And that mask is a protective to help you get there.
Keeps me safe.
That's good. That's good. Shalonda?
Yes. I like. I'm sorry, I'm just talking when I'm like.
Yes.
Can we just pause for a second with the forward though? The forward was really, really good.
The forward was great.
By Pastor Antonio Matthews. And he says often on the first page of the forward, often the one loving will go to great lengths to be loved, feel loved, and experience love until his or her actions overcompensate. And he also goes on to say, encountering reciprocity for the love given while coming to the revelation that what being received from those we love is only pacification to continue outpouring of love being given. That's when loving the other person becomes death to you.
Yes.
That's really good. How would you say in your love for others, how do you not necessarily put boundaries up, but protect yourself from being hurt or being in a situation where death is resultant because you've given your all, and you're not getting anything in return?
Yeah, so that was trusting the process was one of the most challenging chapters in the book. And so going back to your statement, what do you do when it doesn't end the way you want it to end? When you love someone so much, in your mind, when you have a small g God complex, as I pretty much formed growing up around him and his decisions, you have a plan for how it's supposed to turn out because you see the potential. I had in my mind, the plan would have been he started a street ministry to help other people. So if you couldn't convince me that was not the outcome. Okay. So when that was not the outcome and I had no other prayers to pray, that what do you do with that? And I had to come to grips. Luckily, I had started breaking the cycle to enabling probably the last year or two of his life. And that was a change because it was a different behavior. So you're still loving this person unconditionally, but not accepting behaviors. So I had to change how I showed up. He didn't change. I changed how I showed up. And I started setting limitations on, I can no longer take you there. I was no longer going to check for you at the drug house because that wasn't safe for me, and I have 2 daughters. So I had to start making different decisions on what my limitations had to be. And what I'm learning now is that I am forming limitations and boundaries prior to going into a relationship so I don't have to figure it out when I'm in the relationship.
That's good. Marcy?
Okay. Well, the thing that I really like was in chapter 3. Anything in chapter 2?
No. What time do we have?
We have 9:12.
It's 9:12?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's see. Well, I take that back. I take that back.
Do you have to?
Yeah, I'll go. So I'm going to just jump to I'm going to step back to page 10. And I'll just read a little part. No one is an enabler just for the sake of it. And so it's a disease just like alcoholism and drug addiction. And I thought that was just, an interesting connection. It's an emotional impulse to hear a need and go out of your way to fix it without weighing the consequences. And on the next page, you said, if I could talk to my younger self, and you shared there, you would say, lighten up on yourself. And I wrote in the margin, I think we all have had similar talks to our younger selves. What would a letter to your future self look like?
My future self is one thing I try to do, which I would like to do better to my future self, is to celebrate my successes along the journey. I am very focused And once I check it off the box, I'm already to the next thing, and I don't celebrate what I have overcome. So I would speak to my future self is be a little more flexible with your goals. If you don't hit it exactly the way you think you're supposed to achieve it, it's okay. You're still, as long as you're in the will of God, He knows what you're supposed to be. He knows what you're supposed to accomplish. So I would say, don't work on being being a perfectionist all the time, but just be in the will of God and be flexible. That's one thing I'm definitely learning in this journey is that move with the seasons. The seasons are very important. Don't stay in a season longer than you are supposed to. It becomes stressful, frustrating. And so being in tune with the Holy Spirit that when it's time to shift seasons, you're moving with the season and not fighting the season.
That's good. I do have a question with you in reference to that, but I do want to reference something that is the theme throughout the book and the theme throughout our conversations is that balance is necessary. And oftentimes we lack balance, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in our day-to-day task. Balance is necessary for success. And I appreciated the words that each of you are bringing to the table and what I've read in the book, because it's a reminder that too much love can be detrimental to destiny, and not enough love can be detrimental to destiny. So balance is necessary in every area, and to have someone who can help you with balance. I say this, if you live in an area you don't have family, find a church. You have to have someone speaking balance in your life for you and the ones that you love. It's necessary. When you talk about, seasons is like a tick word for me, because oftentimes people use the word season so lightly. Yeah. When you say season, what determines a season in your life?
Well, I don't quantify it as the 4 seasons of, that we go through: fall, winter, spring, and summer. Seasons to me, life shifts. It's when where you are has served its purpose. What you're doing, it's time to do something different. So I had a season that I journaled for 18 years. And the Lord said it's time to shift that and put it into a book. So I'm not saying necessarily it's always a physical shift. It could be a mental shift of changing of how you're currently doing something, and you need to do something differently with that in this season. So when I wrote my book, the Lord said you're going to self-publish it as well. I'm like, I knew nothing about that. Right. That was different. So that was a shift of season. Who I need to connect with next to help me fulfill purpose there. So not necessarily so much that you're physically moving here, moving jobs, not that type of a season, but just being in tune on where's God shifting you? What do you need to do next? So many times, like I'm in HR, people stay on their job longer than they're intended to. There's somewhere God needs you to be next. Mm-hmm. And because the comfort zone is to stay in this job because you're earning a certain amount, you don't apply for another job. You're not moving with the flow where God needs you next. Mm-hmm. And you stay in the season, you become frustrated, and I speak to that a little bit in my book, is that to me that's an example of staying in the season longer because you're not in your place where God needs to use you for your purpose in your ministry. That's
good. Comfort zones are detrimental to your destiny. And the best thing you can do is shake yourself in the midst of a comfort zone, because it'll become a cancer to your promise. D, what you got?
My first major one that I highlighted was actually on page 28, where you talk about your love of roses and the pruning process. And you state these words: that the rose just doesn't become beautiful season after season without going through a pruning process. We too go through our own pruning process, and you said God begins to cut back certain desires or people on whom we've become reliant. He removes our crutches so we can become all he wants us to be. This process of pruning is uncomfortable, painful, and scary, and it can also provide some uncertainty about where our stability is heading. The severing isn't designed to minimize your worth or growth potential. It's created to expand your capability. to blossom and propel your potential. When gardeners prune roses, they do it just before the plant breaks dormancy after spring forth. They will cut back the bush in winter right before spring to enable its ability to grow higher and wider beyond its original confinement. And I love that because I think sometimes tragedy breeds its own byproduct of enablement. And so often, sometimes I find that we look at the cuts of our life as detrimental, and it's actually revealing concealed grace. Oftentimes, we don't see the capacity of who we are until the excess is cut. So often, we are prohibiting the strength of who we are to be seen because we're weighted down with all these attachments and all these connections that we think we need. But truthfully, it's funny you talked about mask. It's really masking who you were intended to be because your focus is no longer on you when you enable and when you spend so much time focusing on others. You'll find that your life becomes about others instead fulfilling what was intended for you to be.
Let's go right to the next page on page 29. No matter how many times I said yes to their requests, it was never enough. I didn't want anything in return from the people I helped until their requests wouldn't cease. After years of doing for everyone else, I began to wonder who was truly there for me versus what I could do for them. What would you say to someone who has not read your book? And they are where you are now. No matter how many times I said yes to the request, it was never enough.
Again, that goes back to boundaries. But what I say is that my book is dedicated to my brother, but we enable in many relationships. So it's not only about enabling someone who has an alcohol addiction or a drug addiction or gambling. We enable our children. We don't, we don't want to hear them whining and complaining. So we give them money. Sure, take the car. You can do this. We continue to compromise those things that we know we should really set those limitations to. So what I will say is that enabling is not only about addiction. It's about behaviors. What I would say to someone who has not read my book is that you have to get to a place that you see value in where you are. The cover of my book shows two images where individuals, it's a depiction on two individuals who are so intertwined in the decisions of others, you don't know where you begin and they end. It's not until the light bulb of wisdom to go off that you untie that bow. You have to know your own self-identity. You have to get to a place that you cannot want more for a person than they want from themselves, because then you're inflicting your will onto them. You have to allow the other individual to make their own decisions. Our job is to pray. Our job is to pray. We can fast and do that. But ultimately, our job is to plant seeds. Love them, but don't support that behavior. So we have to get to a place where we, one, have boundaries. We set limitations. But we know the person, we love you, but we have to separate their behavior from who they are. So we always want to continue to give that positive word of affirmation without enabling what that behavior is.
Okay. Sharmi, what do you have over there?
On page 32, you go over the 5 warning signs of being an enabler. And when I was reading that, I thought to myself, one of the greatest lessons that I've had to learn is the gift of no.
Yes.
There are plenty of times where, in the past, where I've said yes, just so you wouldn't feel some kind of way about my no. I didn't feel like I was worthy of a no. Because if you ask me, surely it's my job to do this. And that's been just, as a child, I remember always saying yes, no matter what it was, yes to everything. And so it wasn't until I got saved and under Bishop Wright, and the gift of
I wasn't ready for that. Great leadership. And we're back.
And we're back. and I learned that my no is okay.
Yes.
My no, while it may hurt you, it saves me. My no has life for me because I'm not giving you the power of extracting my everything at your moment's notice. Bishop says this often. Your emergency does not dictate an urgency on my part.
Yes.
And I had to learn that over the years. So for me, just reading just this chapter alone, it just reminded me the gift of my no. So thank you for that.
Also, I had to learn that no is not a curse word. So many times we think that no is, as Christians, we know the love of God and we're supposed to be representatives of Him on earth. And so we think we're supposed to just say yes to accommodate everyone's request. And that's not of God. He gives us discernment. He gives us wisdom. And that if you have to say no, and I think if I speak to my future self, it's getting to a place to say no without having to give an explanation. My no should be enough. And I think sometimes in the process of getting there, we feel like we have to convince a person of why we have a no. And it's not really to convince them. It's just the no.
That's very good. From now on, I'm just going to say no. I'm not going to tell you why I say no. I'm just going to say no. No.
Wait.
Can you make it?
Please
No.
don't do that to me.
Can you make it? No.
That doesn't
No.
Let me tell you how you do this on how to keep the peace. They should already know your yeses and your nos. That's how I keep from being an enabler. You know what to ask me for and what not to ask me for. So if you already, like we talked about the balance, you have that standard set already, you know my yeses and my nos beforehand. So, I'm not biased. I don't care if you're family or friend, foe, people.
It's been proven. That thing has been proven, yes.
I respect that. People respect you for that.
They do.
And you know what I say to that, Tashia? It's okay to remind people because after there's been a space of them not asking, things reoccur to test your no. And so, I think I put some time in there. But see, the thing is, it's not them. It's the thing that questions you. It's something to come and question and test you. So it's okay to remind, reiterate your no. Mm-hmm.
The people in Tashia world need recovery after her nose. Just know there is a recovery after her no.
Choices are real.
Shalonda, what you got over there? I hope that those are who are tuning in, that you're enjoying the dialogue. We are reading The Quandary. We are sitting here with the local author, Sarita Lynn, and we are really enjoying ourselves. If you have not purchased the book, please go to her social media page and order it directly from her. She will be happy. Yeah.
Yes. Bring your own bag.
She'll be happy to send it to you.
Publishing, SKIEpublishing.com.
Say it one more time.
www.skiepublishing.com. And let me just say this, Sky is spelled S-K-I-E because I want to leave an inheritance to my children, so they're named after me and my girls and my brother's daughter. So it's Sarita, Kayla, Imani, and Ebony.
Oh, that's cute. Oh, yes. Marcy self-published a book too. Marcy, her first book, she authored. She self-published too. So we
The title of the book is The P Word.
the P word.
You
For
can get
those-
it, and it's available where?
On Amazon.com.
Amazon.com. Yes, Amazon.com. Marcy Diane.
It's also going to be available at the conference on April 14th.
Yes,
April 14th.
Shami. And the next time we come together, you'll be able to get the book from www.thethompsonlife.com.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So in your book, in the Trusting the Process chapter, you talk about how you stepped out on faith and you took that the 79. I'm sorry, I skipped. We could go back. If we need to. Yeah, we 79. So like I was saying there on the Trusting the Process. So God, I'm sending my own self out. Woo. You said that on November the 15th, you left your good 6-figure salary. bonus options, pension, and benefits, and you went, you made a decision. You said you stepping out on God, and then on August the 29th, 2016, your daughter's account was fraudulently scammed and you lost everything. How were you able to recover from that?
So to go back to the decision to leave all of that, I am the type, I don't leave unless I know what's next. I like money, I like my lifestyle. And so we were going through a restructure, and I'm huge on leadership. I have to be able to respect and come up under the leadership in their direction. We were going through changes, and I really wasn't really feeling that. So they offered buyout packages. I raised my hand, took one. And I was like, yes, I could 6 months. I have a plan. Always got a plan. Plan don't always work it. So I said, okay, I'm good for 6 months. Went on some trips, hanging out with the girls. I was home during the winter, spring. Money started getting low. Plan wasn't working out the way I thought. I said, okay. I was adamant I was not touching my 401k. I said, God, I told God what I was not going to do. We've done that before. Yeah. And so just going through that process, and money started getting really low. And when I had that conversation or found out my daughter's account was scammed and they took it from my account, I broke. That was my breaking point. I wasn't being as consistent with looking for jobs. I would look here and there. Oh, that got my attention. That I said, I got to shift and do something. The shift of the season, my season to be home was done, obviously. My money was gone, and that season was done. Single parent, so I had to be real with where I was. And so I had nothing, and literally, I would give another plug with Pastor. He was like, what do you need? I had no money in my account. I had people who come and put $30 to go get some groceries. That was humbling. I'm always the lender, not the borrower. Oh, wow. So for someone to have to pour into me to that degree was humbling. I cried. I said, okay, what do you want from me now, God? And so he started to order my steps. I did have to tap into my 401k to survive for 2 months. But in my mind, that wasn't an option. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I don't have to do that. But again, your humbling process is going to, for some reason, that's going to help me be relatable to someone else giving a testimony. Sometimes you're going to have to do what you didn't think you would have to. But that's how I survived during that time period. And right now I'm at Fannie Mae. I work in HR. And when I was out, I applied for the same job I have now, no return call. The season shift, they had another posting. I applied again. Got the job. Yeah. And so, and it was interesting during that time period, Pastor had preached, try it again, it's going to work this time. Amen. And I was like, okay, I'll try it again.
Yes, the power of covenant. You see that? Yes. Come on, Mika, what you got over there?
Well, my process with the book is really just about the enablement. So being a person that overextends themselves for the sake of others, overly empathetic, right? Shami said something. You have to process why I do it. What is it within me that needs that level of acceptance from others that I'm willing to extend myself to the degree that it costs me more than I can pay? And so for me, it called me to look back at the power of my prayer life and how serving others detracted from my devotion time.
Mika, put the mic up to your mouth.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Didn't even realize it. But overextending myself to others detracted from the times of solitude that I needed before God and keeping my devotion time. And so people would always have a need because it was that natural distraction of serving, being that Martha, and not sitting at his feet. Yeah, so that was my process there. So there's a scripture that I read. It's in Mark 1:35. Jesus had done miracles all day. Anytime he taught all day. In Mark 4, he's teaching and he goes away on the boat and he's resting. Like he himself took time for solitude. And I was called to a greater level of solitude before God. In Mark 1:35, it talks about, and in the morning rising up, A great while before day, he went out and departed into a solitary place and there prayed. And so this notion of why I enabled really called me to the place of no, keep your prayer time intact. Even say no. They're going to be better for it. You are not everybody's everything. Yes. And for me, that being an only child, like these are patterns, historical patterns, you just grow up with. And so
That's very good, Mika. And again, the common thread here is balance. Everyone has to have balance. And piggybacking off of something you said, Mika, everyone needs a Sabbath day. Everyone needs a day where they digress, they download, they have their quiet time to hear their own heartbeat and hear straight from the throne of God. Because you realize that when you're tired, you say yes to things that the spirit of discernment would normally tell you no to, but because you're so tired, you can't hear. And sometimes yes is the easy way out. And let me tell you, you have to find, again, the common thread is if you get nothing from what we've said today, you have to find balance in your life. You have to have your Sabbath day. You have a Sabbath day can be any day of the week for you. Everyone's schedule is different. Everyone's work schedule doesn't allow their Sabbath day to be on Saturday. So if your Sabbath day is Monday, take your quiet day so that you can always stay intact with the throne of God. It's necessary for this walk.
What I will say to that is that I remember when my dad was living, I was everywhere. Meetings here, got to run here, got to do this for the kids. And my dad said, what are you running from? He said, you're so busy, you won't allow yourself time to sit down just to reflect on you and life. What are you running from? And that stuck with me. Now I have gotten to the place I start eliminating things off my plate because I cannot be good for anyone else if I'm not whole. And so I have, I'm strategic on how I spend my time. I'm in the bed at a certain time because I need to mentally unwind. And so I don't have to show up at every event to feel like it's not going to be successful unless Sarita, does something on agenda or help with this. I want to come and just sit and observe and learn. I don't have to be in the forefront. I enjoy now not always being in the forefront and just being able to say, no, I can't do that this weekend. And then the girls and I just hang out, or we might just do nothing.
I think that requires you to retrain people that you have relationship with. Like when you make that decision, you have to retrain them because I trained you how to treat me. And so if you're used to me always saying yes, then you question my no. And that causes me to question, and you question my character.
They challenge, right?
It was a difficult transition. And you also have to cut off some relationships to develop new ones.
Churchill, you're marrying a great woman, FYI. She's really great, Churchill. Yes. What you got, D?
Love it. On page 98, talking about balance, where Sarita says, doing anything in excess is counterproductive. We all need balance. If we don't make ourselves a priority, we could begin to display physical warning signs in our body. These signs are alarm, telling us something is out of alignment and needs adjusting. And I highlighted that because so many times life is telling us we're out of alignment and we're so committed to a plan that's broken that we're unable to discern it because we're so over invested in a thing. And so often we don't heed. And Lady Wright talked about this, how when you're not still, you're unable to discern a matter. And so often we feel guilty about needing space to discern. And so I've learned, be slow to speak, quick to listen, observe and dissect, because so often you make hasty decision on a permanent matter because you don't have the right focus. Your vision is off. You're off kilter. And it will bother people when you tell them, I don't have an answer yet. But it's all about, are you committed to your own success enough or your own value enough where you can know it's okay not to have your answer right now?
For me, I didn't have someone who was codependent on drugs. So when you talked about this book, I related it to parenting. And one of the things that parents do, I'll speak for myself. For me, I made, as much as I've tried to be a great mother, life happened and I made some mistakes along the way. And when the part of life happened that you prayed for and your happiness is finally here and you finally feel a peace and a protection that I've never had before, you would have thought that the moment would have caused me to be in alignment. But in actuality, it caused me to be out of alignment because I began to overcompensate for when I couldn't before. And that produced a lot of it's something that we had to outgrow as a mother with Kayla and Samaje, because overcompensating means that they didn't grow at their fullest potential in that moment of their lives that they should have, because I was being their little God. And so we just have to be, that's one of the things that we'll address on April the 14th. As parenting, we do make some mistakes. And Bishop prayed a prayer a couple of Fridays ago and said, it may be that I've made some mistakes. And it may be that my child has experienced some, I'm paraphrasing, some of my mistakes. But God closed that door. Yeah. And that is something that God can do. I cannot overcompensate for what I did. Today will not fix yesterday, but I can make sure that going forward that I'm in alignment for what's best for them and me.
It's funny.
Well, I just to that point. So I'm not a parent yet, but do you think that? So I think about even working in ministry that way. Mm-hmm. So pain, the right amount of pain, focused in the right way, will birth compassion, and I think sometimes we overextend ourselves even in ministry sometimes, not in ministry like working in ministry, but like trying to help hearts. And sometimes we overextend ourselves in that way because it's like, I've been through that. Don't go over there. What do I have to do to pull you? Don't do that. It's hot. That's hot. And, you know, it's everything you said. Because I see that, it's just like, you're not going to hear me, so let me just do it. Let me just show you that, or let me just bail you out or whatever. And I see so much of that. It's just like, no, I see what the end is going to be to that. And so that's one thing I'm trying to find. God, help me balance compelling, like I want to compel people to Christ. I don't want to drag them along. I don't want to. So that's what I'm working on. Let my influence compel them. Let me not have to do, because I've done that. It's like I will snatch you up and place you over here, and now you're safe. No, you're not safe because you didn't come the way God intended. I brought you. So it's like control and all of that. But
that's good, Marcy.
I'm just wondering.
And it made me, I made a point in the book and I forgot about it and you've reminded me. It made me think about our walk in Christ and how we become other people's little gods. In Christ, we become a person's sounding board. If they're going through something, they call you, you pray them through, you hold their hand. And sometimes you have to tell these people no, because as long as you keep delivering them, as long as you keep offering them peace, as long as you keep offering them an answer, they won't seek God from themselves because they have you. So you can't even enable, you can't even allow, I use the word codependent. You can't even allow the people you labor with in Christ to be codependent upon you.
That's so good. Yeah, you were talking about how you overemphasize with Kayla. What's interesting was I saw the other side of it as being one who, when my mom married my dad, they both had 2 children each, and I would watch my mom just not discipline because she felt guilty. That now there's a disciplinarian and they never got a dad, so why should I allow him to address them? So then we, on the other side of the equation, is looking at the hypocrisy or the double standards of there's 2 different rule systems going on here. So it's very interesting to see how enabling, and even in our own frailties of just trying to find our way, we create this underbelly of another issue out of being free from something else.
The quandary.
Sarita, you wanna?
Yeah, that was good. I'm trying to think what that point was. But yeah, I mean, as you talk about the household dynamics, you know, and I mentioned about division even in the household. So my enabling started way before my brother started using drugs. It's a generational cycle. So my grandmother enabled my grandfather, who was an alcoholic. My mother married my father, who was an alcoholic. My brother became a drug addict. And so a lot of times you have to look at the substance abuse change. Sometimes the females become promiscuous. So there is something that comes from that generational cycle that we have to break. But in a house where you have, like you mentioned, that division, and children become very be able to determine who do I go to if I want to get the right answer from here. Right. You know, so they
At an
become
early
manipulative
age.
in the process.
Yes.
And so even in the household, sometimes as parents, we have to be mindful of how we're showing up to our children, and that we're not showing favoritism, because their work, they dare become what we view was favorites. You know, like my older sister was like my dad's favorite. That was what was told. And so that stuck. That may not have been the case, but be careful what we're saying around our children, because it's planting seeds to demonstrate behaviors. And it takes years to break that.
That's good. This has been great, compelling dialogue. I'm really thoroughly enjoying it. Time is of the essence, and I want to make sure that we capture the book, and Sarita is able to give a closing remarks without feeling rushed, because last week I think we rushed our moments. So I'm going to just start with you, Sharmi, if you want to just close out the book, tell Sarita and those viewing what you thought about it, and then we'll just go right on over with Sarita. You'll go last.
So overall, the book for me was very thought-provoking. It caused a lot of self-reflection, and I would recommend this book for anyone who feels like they may be an enabler. She gives some key points on how to step out of that, and how not to look back and maybe guilt trip yourself for saying no, for finding balance, for choosing you first. And so this is a great book for that, and I thank you for writing it. Thank you.
So I'm going to just wrap with, it's on page 29, and, you know, the word of the day has been balance. And I'm going to say, balance your life with the word. And so, you know, the definition of love, the Bible gives us clear instruction. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it's not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in truth. It always protects, trusts, always hopes. But love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be still. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. And it goes on to say, the greatest is love. And so God is love, and it's about discernment and balance. And when you have questions about should I not, I think the book is saying, you know, ask yourself, what would Jesus do with this request? What would he do with this request? So, for help or whatever, so.
I'd like to conclude with page 34, where you say the line between support and enablement is very thin, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. And you make the point that sometimes while desiring to be supportive, you can be a teeter and cross the line into enabling. You may have the purest intentions, but the results of enabling are the same. And you said enabling is supporting habits and addictions that are detrimental to another person and yourself. When you enable others, you help them to continue in self-destructive behaviors by providing excuses or making it possible for them to avoid the consequences of their own behavior. And I think you do a very good good job of giving clear definition to behavior. A lot of times we see a behavior, but we can't identify or quantify what does that look like. And so you've given us what it looks like in a human to be able to identify, that's me. So.
To conclude the book, I would just like to say that if you would like to be, or if you desire to be an effective leader or an effective parent, you have to trust your choices and your answers. Reason being, because you can love people to righteousness, but if they know that they can always come to you to get to you cripple people. You do more damage than good when they don't know the clear line between enabling and supporting. When it's not clearly defined that you can't come to me and ask me for money for drugs or a ride to go get drugs, or when it's clearly defined, I think you're just much more effective when you start out telling them, or if they know off the break. So that's what I got out of it. Just let it be clearly defined what you will and will not tolerate. When you see the behavior, when you don't silence it, don't overlook it. But you'll reap great benefits from it, and just trust your answers and your choices, be it family or who, or in a relationship, on your work, in your workplace, or. So that's what I wanted to just talk about the book, the dangers of being an enabler. If you don't start out doing it, you won't have to know if you made the accurate choice, or you won't have to wait to see if it played what would have happened if it play out. Just start out off the break, not be in it. That's all.
Well, I'll conclude with this. I think that like everybody has the theme of, balance. And I think balance is very important. And we've talked about enabling, but I think to bring it all together, I'll just define what enable means. To give the authority or means to do something, to make something possible, to make operational, or to activate it. So sometimes you have to find that balance, because to enable is not always a negative thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's not always a bad thing to activate. It's not always a bad thing to make something possible. It's not always a bad thing to make something operational, because I think that is within us. That's one of the DNA traits of God, because in the beginning God created. And he said, let there be light. He made this thing possible, and he watched it behave. He said it was good. So there is a trait within us all to be able to enable something or someone to do a thing, because that's what the definition says. But I think that if we keep with this theme of balancing it out, because if you don't give enabling balance, then it will lead to the detriment of those who you are actually enabling, where you do become a God to that person, and they look for you for saving and not to God himself. So I think that's important for us to know, that to enable is not always a bad thing. You just have to balance it out. So thank you for this read. It was really good. It gave insight to that. And so thank you for your work.
For me, the book put an exclamation point where I had periods about soul care and enabling myself, right? And our culture doesn't celebrate silence or solitude or stillness or reflection, right? At all. And so you will not drift into a place of alignment with him. You have to be intentional about meeting God on a daily basis. And so it was a reminder to stay in that place and not to be pulled in too many different directions. My soul finds its rest in you alone, O Lord. That's where the book anchored me. It's like, stay there. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to get choked up. So, in conclusion, what I would like to say is that this book is less about me and more about how I can help someone else. So through this book, I would like a person to read it and be open to what God wants to do through you. God will take you where you are, regardless of your journey you've gone through. As I mentioned in my book, I am so transparent. I've been divorced. I've had foreclosure. I've lost houses. I've lost material things, but more importantly, I was losing my peace. And so God had to sit me down long enough to relive this. It's one thing to live your journey once, but when he requires you to live it again, to write about it, that was the hardest year of my life. And I thank God for allowing my faith to go to where it was, to leave that security of my job, because I would not have been as transparent in this book if I was still on my job. Because in my mind, I would have always been thinking, what are they going to think about me? What are they going to say? But because I wasn't working, my whole focus wasn't on anyone else but listening to the Holy Spirit, getting up in the middle of the night, writing exactly what he said. Because sometimes, even after I published, I went back, I'm like, I wrote that? That real, and it's not all that's not my wisdom. This is the Holy Spirit when he's dropping knowledge into you about different aspects. But just know, whatever you have gone through, it will all work together for your good if you just trust the process.
That's so good. I thank each and every one of you for joining us. I thank you, Sarita Lynn, for joining us today. The Quandary was a book. Life of Books is an online book club, and it has always been to get the power out of the pages. That reading is a mental vacation, and I enjoy reading many different books because it lets you see life through somebody else's eyes, and you don't only see life black and white. And I appreciate how this book allowed me to see life through another person's eyes. It's necessary. And viewing people through other people's eyes, it helps you self-reflect. It helps you see yourself. You find yours in anything and everything you read. You should never look at anyone else first. You should always see how it applies to you first. So this was a great book of self-application. I thank you so very much. If you have not gotten it, you can get the book. You can purchase it at www.skiepublishing.com. Oh, look at me. You can purchase the book from her. I thank you for joining us. The overall theme for the day has been balance. Balance is necessary in your life. You have to make sure that you take time to rest. You take time to think your decisions through so that you won't be a disappointment to not only yourself, but other people that's counting on you. On behalf of A Life of Books, thank you so very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in March. Make sure you go on to www.awomansvoicematters.net and purchase your tickets for April the 14th. It's going to truly be a life-changing moment. Yes. And again, Sarita, thank you so very much for joining us. Thank you. We'll see you again in March. Until then, be blessed.